to the special meeting, budget hearing for City Council, June 19th, 2023. I have an announcement concerning the installation of the transformer at the water treatment plant. We want to inform the public that the city's electric department will be finishing the installation of a transformer at the water treatment plant this Wednesday, June 21st at 6 a.m. The plant will have to be shut down for approximately 2 hours to finish the installation process. There's not expected to be any interruption of service or water pressure issues for customers. Thank you for your continued support of the City of Morganton as we fix this problem. First on our agenda is a proclamation for Youth Engagement Month. I'd like to read that proclamation. Whereas meaningful participation of youth in all aspects of their personal and community development has been recognized by the United Nations as a fundamental right of youth, and whereas youth engagement prepares our youth to be better citizens from which will emerge our future business owners, city and county leaders, and whereas the City of Morganton realizes the importance of youth engagement and values the work of organizations that seek to give youth the platform to create change, and whereas youth involvement teaches valuable skills and life lessons such as leadership, teamwork, discipline, problem solving, work ethic, communication, and whereas the City of Morganton supports organizations like the Berth County State of Youth, whose primary goal is to engage our youth to create meaningful change by engaging in civic and social activities that better our community, and whereas the City of Morganton encourages youth to find opportunities to engage with our community, and the city encourages adults to explore the importance of youth engagement within our city. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Ronnie Thompson, do hereby proclaim June 2023 as Youth Engagement Month in the City of Morganton, and to commend this observance to all our citizens. Proclaim this 19th day of June 2023. Ronnie Thompson, Mayor. Renee Carswell, City Clerk. I'll ask the council if they want to accept this proclamation. Make a motion.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. I'll ask Mayor Pro Tem Wendy Cato to present that. I believe Malik Harris is here to accept.
Hi, Malik, how are you? Thank you for all that you do for the youth. Listening to your speech on Saturday, it inspired me as well, and I know you're over at Freedom, and I have a granddaughter over there teaching, and I know that you're a leader there, so continue your work. It takes only one to bring others involved, so continue on, okay?
Thank you.
Do you want to say anything?
Well, I will say thank you, City of Morganton, on behalf of Burke County State of Youth. We think that it is amazing to see that young people will be able to see that their city appreciates and encourages them to get active in our community. So we thank you for that.
Thank you, Malik.
Thank you.
Okay, now call the public hearing. I'll now ask for a public hearing and consideration of the City of Morganton's budget for fiscal year 2023-2024. Turn it over to our city manager, Sally.
So at our last morning, we talked for quite some time about the budget being presented for the 23-24 year. Highlights are it's a $95 million budget. The proposed tax rate is 50 cents per $100 value. The proposed tax rate for the municipal service district, or downtown as we call it, is 12 cents per $100 of value. 5% recommended increases in water and sewer that would be effective August 1st. Electric rate decrease of an average of about 1.75% that would also be effective August 1st. No change in sanitation fees. There's almost $29 million worth of capital spread across the funds in this budget. And for Compass, there are no increases in cable TV, none in telephone, and the internet speeds will be adjusted down. We won't offer as many. We're going to consolidate those, and there'll be some changes in the fees associated with that.
What's the wish of council?
Well, I think you got to take comments.
Yes, comments. Any comments from the public first? Seeing no one approaching, public hearing is now closed. We need a motion for the budget ordinance, please.
I'll make a motion to adopt the budget ordinance for fiscal year 2023-24.
Thank you, Chris. I have a motion to have a second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Butch. Any discussion? I think it's a great budget. Sally, y'all did a great job.
A lot of hard
you.
work.
Thank you.
All in favor of the motion? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay,
And the other action associated with that is the fees and charges which support the budget. And that's a living document that changes, and so need you to adopt those fees as presented in accordance with the budget.
and Sally, there was a handout earlier, correct?
There is, so one of those pages, there's been a different amount for a fee, and so we have given you the page to support that change.
What's the wish of council?
Make a motion to adopt the schedule of fees and charges for fiscal year 2023-2024.
Thank you, Chris. I have a motion to have a second.
Second.
Thank you, Wendy. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next is consideration of approval of year-end budget amendments for 22-23. Sally?
Yes, it's that time of year where we have our last opportunity to tweak the budgets and to make sure that we've got everything accounted for that we need to. I'm asking you to do 4 different budget amendments this year. The first one is in the general fund, and I'll need you to do them separately. The first one is in the general fund, and it is for $221,771.25. And that is to adjust some economic development incentives that have come about as we have adopted those through the year. Some changes in professional services, capital expenditures that were more or different than we anticipated, and some personnel costs. I would point out that this doesn't require appropriations of fund balance. We're doing it all with revenues that we've received, except for the asset forfeiture monies. And those are monies that public safety gets, and they have to be used for specific purposes. And so we're using those to buy supplies and equipment for public safety.
What's the wish of council?
Motion to approve the budget amendment for $221,771.25.
Thank you, Wendy. I have a motion to have a second.
Second.
Thank you, Chris. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
The second one is the water fund, and you recall we just came to you and we talked about chemical increase and all of that, and I said we may be back to you at the end of the year in there or in sewer, and for some of those we are. So we are back again with some increased utility expenses, understanding that our water fund is a customer of Duke Energy. And so some of those costs have been more than was anticipated for the year. And then some personnel costs for some mid-year changes we had to do there. And the amount of that amendment is $76,000.
What's the wish of council?
I'll enter a motion to approve a budget amendment for $76,000 in the water fund for personnel and utility expenses.
Thank you, Butch. I have a motion to have a second.
Second.
Thank you, Chris. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next motion?
And the next one is in the electric fund. And so in electric, we purchase power not only from Duke Energy through the power agency, but also from Southeastern Power Administration, the SEPA we call it. And SEPA is priced based on really wet or not wet years. And every year we guess what we're going to buy. So we are buying additional power for them. We are required to take that by an agreement. And so we need to increase that line item because we're spending more in that than we anticipated. And then some other capital costs for lots of transformers, lots of costs for equipment and things that we have had to get to put in. And that budget amendment is $230,000.
What's the wish of council?
Make a motion to approve a budget amendment for $230,000 in the electric fund.
Thank you, Chris. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Butch. One question, are we able to get transformers? Are we pretty much?
We can get them. We are waiting a very long time for them. The transformer for the water department, we ended up getting from FEMA? Oh, from the company, but out in the Midwest somewhere, right, is where we finally found that. So it is a real challenge, in all honesty, to continue to get them. And the wait time is still months, right? 9, 14 months, those aren't unusual wait times.
Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. And wastewater.
Last but not least, the wastewater fund, looking at a budget amendment of $160,000 there, and that is really for various operational expenses, anything from chemicals to supplies to the rest of it, and some personnel costs for some changes that we made during the middle of the year.
What's the wish of council?
I'll make a motion to approve a budget amendment for $160,000 in the wastewater fund for various operational expenses.
Thank you, Chris. I have a motion to have a second.
Second.
Thank you, Wendy. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next is, on our agenda is consideration of approval of pay ranges and a COLA effective July 1.
So this is for the 23-24 budget that you just approved. Recommended in that is a 5% cost of living adjustment for full-time city employees that will go into effect in July. And so we will also recommend to move our pay ranges by that same 5%, so that we would use that for recruitment purposes. And in order to do that, you have to approve those ranges, not the individual salaries of the people in them, but the range itself. Also approving 2 new positions that are funded in that budget, and those are the Public Safety Executive Fire Officer that we talked at budget time, and that'll be a new position that will handle planning, staffing, high-level administrative duties, which would give then our fire services captain the opportunity for more oversight in operations and that sort of thing. This came about in looking at the structure of the department and also through some things that happened in our assessment center process that we went through in hiring the new chief. Name changes in those are just name changes from major to assistant chief. No range, that's just a name change. And then sets up some career development for our fire positions, which is something that we've been working toward for several years. And those really too set up name changes to go along with ranges. And then Stormwater Administrator, which we talked about at our workshop, which is in development design, and that is a new position to start assessing our stormwater infrastructure and work toward whatever we're going to do for setting up that in the future.
What's the wish of council?
Make a motion to approve pay ranges and cost of living adjustment effective July 1, 2023.
I have a motion to have a second.
I'll second.
Thank you. Sally, the Stormwater Administrator, I think some people are not real sure how important that is because it's extremely important, correct?
It is important. So in order for us to be permitted by the state, and there's a boatload of requirements, and you'll recall that we were audited more than a year ago now, and we submitted our stormwater rules and regulations, policies, kind of things, and we're still waiting for the state's response back on that. They make you wait a really long time. We expect to get that in January, is what we have been told. Once we have that, we will have to comply with all of those, or we face severe penalties and fines. In order to have a better grasp on it, we applied for a grant. And I think this was just at our last meeting, we accepted it. So we have received $400,000 from the state to help us identify, map, understand the stormwater system that exists. And then this person will be involved in that, and then setting up what we have to do in the future to manage stormwater.
Okay. Thank you. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I assume this is a personnel thing since we approved all this in the budget, correct?
You
All those
did. You
positions.
approved all the money and everything for this, but you are required to approve the pay ranges.
Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next is consideration of several items with Bethel Park Phase 2 stream restoration. Sally?
Do you feel like we talk about Bethel Park a lot?
We do.
We do, and it's a good thing to talk about. So, I mean, good news and all of that. So we have been awarded a second grant from the North Carolina Land and Water Fund. And this one, the first one was for Phase 1 and dealt with Hunting Creek. This one is Phase 2 and deals with Fiddler's Run Creek. Because remember, both of those come to Bethel and meet up and cause issues. So we have been awarded a grant of $424,744. And this is for flood mitigation, restoration at the park. We would combine this money with Phase 1 and then do the construction and the stream restorations and all at one time, which has been our plan all along. In order to do all this, the 22-23 budget included $89,463 in matching funds. Because remember, this is a multi-year project, and we have received several grants that replace some of the city funds we would have to come up with in addition to these. And so we're just trying to make all the numbers match up at this point. The city's been working with Wildlands Engineering for technical assistance on this and applying for the grants and in design services and all of this for Phase 2. Now we need to go to real design of Phase 2. And so we would ask that you consider allowing us to contract with Wildlands for design and permitting for not to exceed $112,542 for this phase. Then later we'll have the construction documents and all of that will go out to bid, and then we'll be awarding the construction part later. So you have 3 items, and that is to approve a resolution that would accept the grant, award the contract for design and permitting, and then approve a budget amendment. Seems like a very strange amount, for $202,901. And basically, that takes all of the city money, all of the grant money that we have received thus far, and everything that we are contracting for, and sets it up in the project fund.
Do I need to read the resolution?
No,
Okay.
you do not.
What's the wish
Not
of
unless you
council?
want to.
No, that's okay. What's the wish of council?
Motion to approve a resolution accepting the North Carolina,
Land and water.
thank you, grant of $424,744, and to authorize the mayor and the city manager to execute and issue those agreements on behalf of the city, together with the additional authority to make sure alterations, technical amendments, and changes as may be necessary to implement each of the agreements.
Thank you, Wendy. Have a motion to have a second.
Second.
Thank you, Chris. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. We need another motion.
I'll enter a motion to approve a budget amendment for the multi-year project budget for Bethel Park Phase renovations in the amount of $202,901.
Thank you, Butch. Have a motion to have a second.
Second?
Thank you, Wendy. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. And another motion, please.
I'll make a motion to award a contract for design and permitting services to Wildlands Engineering for Phase 2 in an amount not to exceed $112,542, and to authorize the mayor and/or the city manager to execute and issue those agreements on behalf of the city, together with the additional authority to make such alterations, technical amendments, and changes as may be necessary to implement each of the agreements.
Thank you, Chris. Have a motion to have a second.
Second.
Thank you, Chris. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. At this time, we're going to let Sally rest and do a consideration of award of a contract for Stony Place curb and guttering improvements. I'm going to call on our city attorney, Louis.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, this is another one with a couple of items on it. The first before you is to consider awarding the contract for the curb and gutter improvements project on a segment of Stony Place. If you're coming up one-way Stony Place from down toward College Street Rec, up toward Sterling Street, this is on your left. It's what's now a vacant lot. And this was put out to bid to be funded under the capital improvement funds of the city. The lowest responsive bidder is Little Mountain Builders of Catawba County, LLC, with a bid of $45,987. For the record, please note there was one lower bid, but that was from a company that was not a responsible bidder. In fact, had been apparently suspended from bidding by another municipality. So you'd have, first of all, the motion to award the contract to Little Mountain to complete this work.
What's the wish of council?
Make a motion to award a contract to Little Mountain Builders of Catawba County LLC in the amount of $45,897 to complete the Stony Place curb and gutter improvements, and to authorize the mayor and/or city manager to execute such contract and any other necessary documents.
Thank you, Chris. I have a motion to have a second.
Second.
Thank you, Wendy. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next is an easement agreement to install and maintain the sidewalk and curb gutter. Louis?
Yes.
May
clerk-
I add one thing before we do that on the last one, so that if anybody's watching that keeps asking the questions, yes, Stony Place does need to be resurfaced and repaved. We've done quite a bit of utility work over there, and that is in the process. We're just waiting for the contractor and for this work to be done.
Thank you, Sally. Louis?
And this work also includes a proposed installation of a sidewalk along the same segment of Stony Place where we're doing the curb and gutter. But that sidewalk would be on private property, the vacant lots that we talked about, which are owned by Legal Entity Alpha LLC, which is a business owned by a local businessman, Jeff Francis. He has agreed two things: to grant to the city an easement to install and maintain a sidewalk, normal width sidewalk, 5-foot sidewalk, on his property, at his expense. He has agreed, in fact, to pay $11,670 to the city for the purpose of sidewalk installation, and I can report to you he has already delivered a check in that amount to the city. So this is ready to proceed if you accept the easement agreement with him.
What's the wish of council?
Make a motion to authorize an agreement with Legal Entity Alpha LLC to install a sidewalk on its properties located on Stony Place. At the same time, the city is completing Stony Place curb and gutter improvements project, to give the city a temporary construction easement during construction, to give a permanent easement once installation is complete, and to accept payment of $11,670 from the owner for the sidewalk installation, and to authorize the mayor and/or city manager to execute such contract and any other necessary documents.
Thank you, Chris. I have a motion to have a second.
Second.
Thank you, Wendy. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Motion passes. Next, we have consideration to consider closing a portion of Plainview Street. Louis?
And I would give quite an award to anyone who can tell me where Plainview Street is. The name is on a map, we will say that. This is in the Delwood Heights area near Glen Alpine. The street in that subdivision is called Alpine Street. The plat depicted a little stub off of Alpine Street called, on the plat, Plainview Street. It's never been opened. The Dustin and Jessica Epley are the owners of all the property that borders so-called Plainview Street, and have asked the city to go through the closing procedure so that this really become part of their property. There are no city utilities or anything else in Plainview Street, and there's no conceivable purpose in the city maintaining it as a public right-of-way.
What's the wish of council?
I'll make a motion to approve a resolution declaring the intent to consider closing a portion of Plainview Street.
And excuse me, I should have said, all you're doing tonight would be to, the resolution of intent with the calling for the public hearing, because this is like any other public street.
Thank you, Butch. I have a motion to have a second.
Second.
Thank you, Wendy. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. And next is consideration of an amendment to the parking ordinance. Louis?
Okay, this is, there is attached in your material a map, which unfortunately is pretty small scale. I'm not sure it's easy to see this, but on South Sterling Street, between McDowell and Irwin Streets, and in fact, as close to Irwin as you can be, the building there, the old Freeman Salvage Building, thank you. Along that side of the street, there are 4 parallel parking spaces, basically in front of the old Freeman Salvage Building, closest to Irwin. They are currently under all-day parking, because they're not otherwise marked on the city's ordinances. The request has been made by some of the property owners, and the Main Street office supports this request to change these to 2-hour parking by amending the relevant section of the ordinance. I believe there is at least one of the property owners or business owners who is who is here tonight, who's indicated further support for doing that. And as far as I know, we have heard nothing negative about it.
What's the wish of council?
Motion to approve changing the time limits for parking in the last 4 parallel spaces on the southbound side of the 400 block of South Sterling Street from all-day parking to 2-hour parking by amending Section 135, parking zones of Appendix 1 of the Charter and Code of Ordinances of the City of Morganton through addition of a new subsection 6A.
Thank you, Wendy. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Chris. Any discussion?
Well, I will say, since we mentioned Freeman, that it's a new business there, and I really hope that the folks in Morganton will go out and visit it. It's a great place for secondhand sporting goods type. Camping and sporting goods
Right.
stuff. Really, really good business for us here in Morganton.
Thanks, Chris.
And this has gone through the parking committee as
Yes.
well. They've done the review on that before coming to our recommendation.
And frankly, the concern is because of that new business, that they,
They need
you know,
this.
people need,
That's right.
there's no other parking
to
in
come
front
in
of the
and out.
building.
Yeah, right,
And you need to keep people moving.
yeah.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next is consideration of a 3-year contract from permitting and code enforcement software. Sally?
So our D&D Department, Development and Design, utilizes an iWork system, and that is our software for permitting, code enforcement, and the like. In that product, when we bought it, there were modules offered that we didn't purchase. One of those is the workflow module, and something that in our business and all as we're doing it today, we have assessed that we really need, and that would help to manage our day-to-day functions, our permitting, all of those things. It would make additional opportunities for us in form letters and things like that that are available in the software. Would help with invoicing, code enforcement, all kinds of things. So we are asking, and this is also included in the 23-24 budget, but we don't have a July meeting. So we're asking that you would give us permission tonight to award this 3-year contract to iWorks. It would not go into effect until July 1, 2023, when the funding is available. It would change increase our cost from $5,296 a year to $9,706.
What's the wish of council?
I'll make a motion to award a 3-year contract to iWork Systems for permitting and code enforcement software with added functionality at a cost of $9,796 per year to be effective on July 1st, 2023, and to authorize the mayor and/or city manager to execute such contract and any other necessary documents.
Thank you, Butch. I have a motion. To have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Chris. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next is award of a contract for design verification on the Silver Creek Sewer Pump Station upgrade project. Sally?
Here's a topic like Bethel Park.
Yeah.
Just keeps coming and coming and coming. So we've been talking about this for years, and in the budget presentation a couple weeks ago, we talked about it again, and it is rebudgeted in the sewer budget for the upcoming year. And it is budgeted with a revenue source that is either going to be a state grant, hopefully, or borrowed money. So this station, as we have talked about, is the workhorse in our system. It handles all wastewater generated in the western part of the city. It's old. It sits down by the soccer complex next to the creek and the river down there. and it needs some infrastructure rehab, increased capacity, and a lot of things done to it. And we have looked at this, we have preliminary designs on this, and we now would like to go to the next stage, which is actually verifying our designs and then getting construction documents, bidding it out, seeing how much it will really cost in today's world, and all of those things, and ultimately awarding a contract. If we have to go to financing, we're gonna need all of those things to go to the LGC for approval. The cost for the next phase is $388,500, and we are asking that you award a contract to Highfield Engineering in order to provide the technical service for us for this. This, again, would go into effect July 1, 2023, and the source to pay for this, so we have received $1.1 million from the state already toward this project, and so we are using that funding to help pay for this first part.
Thank you, Sally. What's the wish of council?
Make a motion to approve and authorize a contract with Highfield Engineering, task order number 1, to be effective July 1, 2023, to provide design, verification, bid phase services, and consultation administration for the Silver Creek Sewer Pump Station Upgrade Project, not to exceed the amount of $388,500.
Thank you, Chris. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Chris. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next, we have a consideration to provide engineering service for the wastewater plant.
Back at our workshop, when we talked about the things that we were looking toward proposing in capital and some other things related to our capital assets, this was one of those items. So as a condition of our wastewater permit, which we are required to have by the state and to follow, a plant capacity study is required. And so we would like to ask your permission once again, because this is in the budget for next year, with an effective date of July 1, 2023, to approve a contract with Garver Engineering to provide this service. The cost for this is $146,057, and that is also included in the budget that you just approved.
What's the wish of council?
Make a motion to approve and authorize a contract with Garver Engineering, task order number 1, to be effective July 1st, 2023, to provide engineering services for a capacity analysis at the wastewater plant for a fee not to exceed $146,057.
Thank you, Chris. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Wendy. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. And we need approval for a master agreement for professional engineering services. Sally?
Yes. So as you can see, we use professional engineers for a lot of things that are going on, that are capital related and infrastructure related. And the city is constantly looking at and updating our list of on-call engineers. Engineers that have submitted their qualifications via a process that we have. After a review, recommendations come from the staff, whether to include them on the list, whether they can increase our bandwidth in the kinds of services that they provide and help us. Currently, we have reviewed presentation and the qualifications from McGill Engineering Services and feel like they offer a variety of services that could be beneficial to us in the future. And after the interview, the staff is recommending that we add them to our on-call list. They too, like the other engineering funds, have acquired grant money, have worked on recreation projects, electric projects, streetscapes, sidewalks, water and sewer projects, that sort of thing, and worked in multiple states. So we would ask that you consider adding them to our on-call list.
What's the wish of council?
Make a motion to add McGill to the city's on-call list of engineering consultants and to approve and authorize a master service agreement with McGill Engineering Services providing professional engineering services.
Thank you, Chris. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Butch. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next is approval of a contract for Garver Engineering for the disinfectant.
Yes, so this is another one of those things that we talked about at workshop time. And this is, again, at the wastewater treatment plant. And have I said lately that it requires an awful lot of resources to treat wastewater? Just going to throw that out there one more time. We use chlorine gas for disinfectant, and pretty expensive, high cost. There's been some supply issues, and also it's probably not exactly the safest method. So at this point, looking at alternatives, this obviously will not include making any changes to any alternatives. That would be for a later consideration. But looking at the alternatives and how this process might be changed at that plant seems prudent for us. And we had budgeted in 23-24 $50,000 for the study. Garver has submitted to us a quote of $38,830 to provide this study. So we would again ask that effective July 1, that you allow us to enter into this contract with them for the study.
What's the wish of council?
I'll make the motion to approve and authorize task order number 2 to be effective July 1st, 2023, under a master services agreement with Garver Engineering for $38,830 to provide services for a disinfection study.
Thank you, Butch. I have a motion to have a second.
Second.
Thank you, Wendy. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Do we have anything else to come before council tonight? I'd like to thank staff for a great job putting the budget together. And want to wish everybody at home and here to please have a very safe 4th of July. We adjourn.